Hello, and welcome back to As the Cauldron Bubbles. This is your host, Jasmine, and today I have a special co-host with me.
Hi guys, this is C.
And we are going to be answering some more of your questions. Talking about, some chaos magic, some covenry stuff, some ex-covenry stuff. We're going to be kind of getting into it today. Some of you from Patreon, from YouTube have submitted some questions, and we're going to do our best to answer those questions and stay on track. But you know that when C and I get together, we love to ramble, and we go on. But I think
we go on some little side journeys,
some side journeys,
quests,
Yeah, some side quests. That's a good way to put it. But I think it's insightful still.
Yeah, oh, definitely. It's Cliff Notes.
Our rambling, is still insightful.
It has a point. It has a purpose.
So let's take it with first of all, our first question.
Yep.
How can I incorporate chaos magic into my everyday life? Now, we do have an episode on the podcast where we're talking about chaos magic and chaos theory and philosophy almost exclusively. I'm not exactly sure which episode that was, but if you go back and look through the playlist, you should be able to find it. I believe that was the one before the podcast about when a witch betrays the coven and cord cutting. But to touch on it again, because people still want to know, how could someone, as someone who, because you identify as a chaos magician, as a chaos witch?
Coyote.
A coyote is...
A coyote,
okay.
Coyote,
Yeah. Good.
So, that's the beauty of chaos magic. It's however the fuck you want it to do. Like, you make the rules. It's all you. So, if you want a job promotion... You want some tail, because those are the two most common things.
But everyday life, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about trying to not hit a red light on your way to work?
Yeah, I was about to say, it can start as early in the morning, You could use chaos magic to kind of empower your body wash. I've done this before, actually, to give you a better day. And it works.
Puts you in a mindset.
Honestly. Yeah.
Or something else, and I think I've made a video using Norse runes with this style, but I think that you could also just use traditional chaos sigil craft. And, when you're doing your makeup, if you're a daily makeup wearer, such as myself, if you're trying to be beat to the gods, you could put those sigils on your face and concealer, blend them out. And I do,
and that's some glamour magic right there.
Right there. And
you're more attractive, you're more charismatic, you glow. Yeah, that's definitely something
And I think it's a nice way to add intention into something as mundane as, because sometimes people think that it's very superficial, but I think makeup can be, but it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's a form of communication, really. It's a subconscious communication, even. I will say, I work a lot with chaos magic that works in the internal world. So I have made sigils that kind of alter my personal perception of time to make time slow so I can get more accomplished. Or to make it be perceived to myself, my own personal psyche, as going faster so I don't have to deal with something. It'll make my meeting go faster at work that I don't want to have to deal with. Or, if I'm having a really nice time with somebody, I can... think on that sigil, and it just kind of alters my perception of time.
I think, too, and I got this idea from another chaos practitioner, but, they're a student right now, and they will use, their eraser, right? And, when they were taking paper examinations, because a lot of stuff is online right now. But, they would put a sigil using the eraser side of their pencil, because it's kind of invisible.
Right.
And
okay, I'm here for that.
Kind of cast that over their test to ensure that they get a passing score.
I like that. I think I'm going to have to use that.
Or to maybe influence the instructor to be willing to give them, a half credit point.
Right.
Or just be more lenient on their grading.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool way.
This kind of is along the same topic, but not quite chaos magic, but more of like a demonology. I have some demonology coins, which are super cool. I'll have to figure out what the link is so you can share it with your lovely audience. It was a crowd fundraising, what's it called? Crowdfunding?
Crowdfunding.
Yeah, or it's a project that you pay for. I waited for over a year for these, but they were demonology coins. And one is Duke Vapula, which is kind of a helpmate type of demon. Not with any disrespect said in that, but like this is the demon that you would talk to if you want to do better with the sciences or philosophy or anything like that. And I would actually go in a trance and just kind of fondle this coin that had the sigil. Yeah, just kind of rub it in my hands and just kind of be one with this coin and let my mind kind of subconsciously go off. Just kind of like Inception, like how they have the little totem things, a little bit like that. And I, for whatever reason, I had great focus because I do have issues with like attention deficit sort of things going on there. So being able to just kind of stimulate and like hold this item in my hand, it helped me focus on that. So that in and of itself, it doesn't matter if it was like a psychological trick or I was really invoking Duke Vapala in to help me. But either way, it worked. Passed that class with like a 96, so
and that's on good. Chaos Magic. Huh?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, really, there's no limitation. I really encourage people, if you want to get into Chaos Magic, look up forums online. Peter J. Carroll, that's the basics. Start with that. Andrea Vinimus, if I'm pronouncing that right, and if he heard this, I would so fangirl. Like him and like Damien Eccles. Oof. Anyway. Yeah, go with a few of those names, go with your forums, and just remember, like, don't take it too seriously. There's no rules set in stone. That's the beauty of chaos.
And it's a lot of experimentation,
It is, yeah, it's a very scientific method. So, like, you have your hypothesis, and then you give it a try, and then you kind of record your findings, and if it works, keep doing it, and if it doesn't work, you can waste time and keep doing it, or don't do it,
Or alter it and try something.
Tweak it a little bit. Yeah.
You can work towards the same goal, but maybe try a different
The issue
method.
is you just got to get your subconscious into the right headspace. Mm-hmm. But I mean, once you do that, it's fine. It's just everybody holds their pencil differently. They still might write similarly and get the point across and communicate a message. Everybody holds their pencil differently. That's the way I say it.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
So the next question here, and so the rest of this podcast, I think we're going to be kind of diving in a little bit more to what we talked about with betraying a coven / cord cutting. So if you haven't already listened to that episode, I highly recommend that you do, because you're going to get a little bit more of C's kind of perspective and backstory as a witch who's been solitary, been in a coven, and is now solitary again. And so if you haven't seen that, I recommend that you listen to that episode, because you'll get a bigger picture for what we're going to be talking about with these next couple of questions, as they do regard covenry. So, this next question's kind of weird for me, but I want you to be totally honest. Okay?
Of course, always.
So how was Jasmine as a high priestess?
Oh, child.
Can we first, I would like to hear you define what high priestess is. Well, why don't we start there? Because some people maybe who are watching, or I guess I should say listening, because it's an audio podcast, I think that sometimes high priestess, we kind of have different interpretations, and it varies from tradition to tradition. So I think to answer this question, I think it would be best to kind of start with, how do you define a high priestess? And then I guess where I fell into that for you during the time that you were in the coven.
Okay. So, I mean, I want to start by saying all covens are different. So their high priestess is going to be different. In our coven, the SCC, won't let me be your... sorry. Tangent there. I'm sorry, you can take the girl out of Naptown, you can't take Naptown out of the girl. Okay. So I'm going to ramble off some Eminem lyrics. You know. So, with the Solar Court Coven, I think you put it best that it's kind of like a PTA mom. Mm-hmm. Like, you kind of round us together, you organize, you're the one that kind of sets the structure for everything. But we are very democratic in that way, and I would like to think
so, yeah.
And, we would vote, we would voice our opinions, because it was our coven. It wasn't Jasmine's coven, and then we were the little flunkies. Like, it was our coven.
Absolutely.
But you were kind of like that goose in the middle, that little hellion that would kind of, like, guide the V, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, you were a leader, but you weren't, like, above us. There wasn't a hierarchy. No, yeah. But you helped keep us on track, keep us orderly.
Yeah.
If we got a little too kiki and it was time to do ritual, you'd be like, hey, come on, we gotta focus.
Yeah, because
you know?
sometimes there's work to do.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that because within, SC, it's like, we're all such good friends. I think that's almost kind of a prerequisite before someone even comes
We're
in.
like the Babysitters Club, but with magic.
So like, it's easy for us to fall into tangents and go on kikis, but, when it is a sabbat, or when we do have some sort of working plan, it's like, yes, let's have fun and kiki, but also, like, we've been kikiing now for 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you were the person that structured it, you were the conductor, and we were the orchestra. You didn't make the music by yourself, by any means, but you structured it, and you kind of made things go in a certain flow. And, if I may say, you've done a damn good job.
Thank you.
You're a wonderful high priestess.
Thank you.
And I say this, you're a very ambitious woman, and I admire that about you. And your mind, my God, your mind is always going. Always going. I'm trying to make you cry if you can't tell. But, like, I'm going to start crying. But, like, you're always like, okay, well, let's do this for the retreat. Let's do this for the sabbat. Let's do this here. Oh, guess what? In the community, this is going on. And, I mean, really, you put it best. It's PTA mom, but, like, for witchcraft.
And I think some people sometimes think that, like, the word high as a part of the title of high priestess. First of all, in my opinion, being a high priestess is very much something that is earned.
Oh, yeah.
Very much you earn it. Because you see
so many people that call themselves that, and it's like, but how?
Right. What are you doing?
I could say I have a degree from Harvard, or, like, I'm a Harvard alum, but it's like, but, like, how? Like...
That's why it's always weird for me, just personally, as an HP, to, like, I've never been the type to, like, necessarily introduce myself.
Yeah.
Like, hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm
Yeah, because, I mean, some of us, we just don't like titles. Like, technically, I could call myself a Reiki master, but I feel, and no offense to anybody that does Reiki, I feel like that is really, like... lame. I don't know. I don't know the word for that.
I think that there's a time and place for it. I think there's a time and place for it.
It's just kind of like tooting my own horn. Like, okay, when it comes to social justice and marginalized people, I hate the word ally. Many of my friends would call me an ally. I don't like that. I feel like I'm a decent human being. Mm-hmm. Ally is just like a little trophy title we give ourselves. So when I see, like, a cishet white person, let's say, for instance, being like, I'm an ally... No, you need to, like, instead of just saying it, you need to have your actions match that.
Well, and to me, like, being a high priestess is very much, it's a noun, but it's really more of a verb. And
it is, yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
It's a position of service, and it's like, how are you serving your community, your people? What are you doing? Because, like, high doesn't mean better than.
Right.
To me...
it's more responsibility.
Yeah.
It's like a 10 of rods type of situation.
And also, you're a high priestess to that particular group. So... that's it, though. Yeah. Like, you're not a high priestess to the community as a whole.
Yeah.
That
it's
title...
it's not like you have a major pull of some sort.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that title or that verbology doesn't grant you... I think sometimes people think it has certain privileges or authorities to it, and maybe it does, but I think that...
and it varies by coven,
yeah,
too.
And I think, there's appropriate times. Like, if I'm randomly just meeting someone for the first time, I don't think that's necessary. Just, like, introducing myself... like, hi, my name's Jasmine, and I really am into tax... like, that's not... they can get to know that part of me.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to have everything up close. Just like in the last podcast, we were talking about dating. Like, you don't have to throw it all out there.
Yeah. And I think, too, that, like, sometimes where it is appropriate is, like, there's been times where SC and other covens, we've all gotten together and done some big community thing. And I think that having people... aware of, like, this is this group, this is this group, this is this group. Here are these people in these groups if you have questions or if you want to reach out, or, like, I think that's an appropriate time.
Right.
If there's some sort of community function going on where multiple different covens are participating to host something, yeah, I think that's great then. For
because,
each of the
and I mean, you act as a representation for the group, too.
Yes.
You're our voice in the community.
But I also think that, like, the voice of the individual witches of the coven is equally as valid.
Oh,
and every witch in a coven also, represents that coven.
Right. And I mean, for what it's worth, I think you've done that very well from where I saw it. If I had to, like, have my choice of any coven I'd be in, it would have been Solar Court Coven. Like, it was the place to be, the good people and good times, and I love y'all, so getting a little sentimental.
And I think it's important to say, too, that, like we've talked about before, like, we've all been good friends.
Yeah, we're still friends. Like, you're at my house right now drinking White Claw and eating cake.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. And so
we're gal pals.
Yeah, like, I don't think our relationship, I mean, our friendship was really built on roadkill.
It was, yeah.
First.
Yeah.
And then, like, the craft kind of came after.
Yeah.
And then it kind of grew into something more. But I think, too, that, like, how you left the coven, which, for those of you listening, I highly recommend, like I said, you listen to that video, because for a lot of covens, there are protocols on how to enter, like how to initiate, and also how to leave, aka how to cord cut. And, you know, C did live up to the expectations, and, you know, because there are, when you're in a coven, there are expectations, there are responsibilities, there are kind of rules and regulations and codes of conduct. And you met all of those. It wasn't like you just dipped out. And we talk more about that in the podcast episode, but I think that's another big reason why, aside from us just being friends, you didn't screw anybody over with your exit.
Right.
It was, this is no longer serving me, let's do the cord cutting, blah, blah, blah. And we did. And here we are. And we're still
we
good
went
friends.
through the proper channels. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, to me, that's basic fucking respect. So, you know, that's why I did that. And I respect you all and I love you all. And to show you that I do love and respect you, I did it the right way. It wasn't like a text message breakup. Like, well, you know, it's not you, it's me, but, you know.
And I think that we all still kind of hang out, like, intermittently.
Yeah.
You know? And I know that you hang out with some other folks from the coven, too.
Yeah.
Like, so, and we're still on good terms. And, you know, we have told C that, like, they're welcome to come to any open spots. And they have told us, like, anytime there is an open spot, let them know.
Yeah.
So we still have a great relationship. And I think it's great to have these sort of dialogues, because so many people do have stories, like they left their coven and their car got vandalized.
Yeah.
Like it was a gang or a cult, or like they left their coven and all of their, you know, I've had people tell me from our last episode, like, oh, when I left my coven, like they aired all of my dirty laundry and slandered my name.
And that's shitty.
And I mean, with my marriage. And
that's like leaving a bad relationship and they keep stalking you or they're talking shit about you. Versus like a very civil type of breakup where it's like, I love and respect you still, but this time has passed and blah, blah, blah. So that's my take on it. Yeah. But no, overall, to answer the question though, Jasmine was a phenomenal high priestess. Always created a great atmosphere for the spots. Always had good ideas. Always listened to her coven mates and gave everyone a voice and a platform. So kudos.
What do you, thank you. What do you think would be some advice for me that I could do better? Because I think we can always improve.
Well, yeah, we totally could.
And while I might not be your high priestess any longer, you know, what's an exit survey? You know,
shoot, put me on the spot. I don't know, because I mean,
well, you can think about it. And we can
I know. Like, because I mean,
more,
like as far as like organizing things, like the witchy retreats, you did so well on that. So I mean, I don't know, because you always made sure we were there and punctual, and you kept us on track, and so, I mean, I'm not really sure how you could improve as a high priestess.
Sometimes I think maybe I should be more Queen of Cups and less Queen of Swords, or more Queen of Pentacles and less Queen of Wands, or
I don't know.
You know, because we also just have our own difficulties and struggles and shortcomings as people, and like just because someone's an HP doesn't mean that they're not also
they're
flawed.
Not infallible. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you've done phenomenal. I know, as all things, they improve with age, so I'm sure you'll be even a better high priestess in the next coming years because you learn and you improve. But I mean, I can't really think of anything that was kind of like a weak spot where it's like, oh fuck, I wish you wouldn't do that.
Well, cool.
You know? Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you're doing great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do your little evaluation forms. Strongly agree. All down the middle, you know.
So, and this next question, I think can be taken in multiple ways.
Yeah. So we'll discuss.
Yeah. So we'll discuss. So, and this one is a great one. I love very thought-provoking questions like
this.
Oh, yeah. So what happens if... So the question is, what happens if one of your coven mates starts doing magic that makes you feel uncomfortable? Is there any sort of moral code that the coven follows in order to, I guess, kind of keep things all in alignment between the coven? I mean, I'm not sure where to take this question.
Okay.
So I think why don't we first break it down to what happens if one of your coven mates starts doing magic that makes you feel uncomfortable?
Okay.
Let's start there.
So let's start there because, I did want to do a lot of left-handed path, but the thing is, I take commitment very, very, very seriously. And with my coven mates, anything tied to me, and I hate saying karmically, but like karmically tied to me, would reflect on them, and my behaviors reflect on them. We are a unit. So everything I do impacts them. So that's part of the reason why I left the coven, just because I wanted to try other stuff, and I didn't want to connect anybody else to it but myself. And that's just me being very conscious of that.
Did you feel at that time the coven was not moving in more of an LHP direction?
A bit, and just like I like to take it to the nth degree. So it's just like, I don't, if something does go wrong or backfire, I don't want it to backfire on other people. I just want it to be on my ass,
Mm-hmm.
So like as far as that goes, that was my feeling, is we're all tied together.
Yeah, because that's really kind of the point, right? Of like being in a coven is that we are all
magically, spiritually tied together.
Yeah, and it's kind of like
it's like a marriage, in a way.
It's a spiritual marriage. And like when you initiate, you're forging bonds with the rest of your coven, and there's pros and there's cons to that. One of the cons is if someone in the coven starts doing this or that, ultimately, for better or worse, it can affect the rest of the coven.
Yeah.
But I think that also goes just beyond spell work. Like if one of your coven mates is really struggling with some mental health issues, other coven mates might also start feeling those same feelings.
Yeah,
or
especially if you have a
that.
big group of empaths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, just with anything, just energy in general.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly.
But with spell work, I think it's kind of amplified.
Yeah.
So was there ever a time, I'm trying to think back of, that time period where you were in the coven. Was there ever a time that magic was being done that you felt uncomfortable by? Or was there ever a time there was magic that you wanted to do that you thought maybe you couldn't because you were in this coven?
No, I mean, like, we wouldn't be doing sex magic or anything. Like, we weren't having orgies together because, like, as one of our coven mates put, y'all are beautiful, but you're not my type, you know.
And that's kind of actually one of the rules, too, is that you don't fuck your sisters.
Right. Because, like, that's so freaking weird.
Yeah, and I've seen covens before where there's partners inside of a coven, and it can make it messy.
It's like a workplace romance. Like, it's better not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just can get messy.
But, like, as far as if someone practiced something, I'm totally, like, do what thou wilt type of mind.
Yeah. Not
just, like, in magic, but in general. Like, it's the Aquarian, like, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Freedom, woohoo, Merca. But, I mean, anything, like, short of, like, sacrificing children or, like, fucking a chicken, like, I don't care what you do on your own time. Now, if you're going around hexing everybody and talking shit, that is going to, like, spiritually reflect on the rest of us. And if that's being done, that's kind of not cool. It's kind of like picking fights with people and be like, yeah, well, my coven sisters are going to kick your ass. And it's like, great, now I got to kick this person's ass, and I don't have a beef with them, but here we go.
Right.
Again, like, it's...
Where do you draw that line there as to what is justified, what is not justified? Because we are having this LHP conversation, and I think that both of us, and I think that the coven has a very healthy... I would say knowledge, working, and understanding of left-hand path, or, working with baneful magic even. Yeah. Just hexes, curses, jinxes. Where do we draw the line at what is too far and what would make you feel uncomfortable? Because this question is geared towards assuming that you were still in a coven, or while you were in the coven, was there ever a time?
Okay, so... Let's name drop a little bit. So I've been going down the YouTube rabbit hole, and I really got into the Become a Living God channel. And there was a handsome gentleman on the other night that was doing some magic involving electricity, which I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm all about electricity. Big Tesla slut here, so, like, let's do that. And, like, vengeance. It was Drop Dead Fred. That's what it was called. And the gentleman doing this said that, like, this person deserved it. He harmed a child, and he was saying the big things that he doesn't stand for is, like, rapists, child molesters, and murderers, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I can totally get behind that, because there are some people that are just bad, evil, awful, no excuse. Sorry, not sorry, deserves a bullet between the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. So, like, if you're doing vengeance, like, hexful type of work against that, I'm totally for it. But I also don't like petty bullshit drama. I don't like people, it's like, my boyfriend was mean to me, so I'm gonna, like, hex him.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, that's just, it's stupid, it's a waste of time. And then 9 times out of 10, you change your mind, and then you feel like shit when something bad happens. And I speak from experience in that. Like, I've grown up a lot through witchcraft. I feel like it really did kind of help me mature on my journey, which is called life. So, I feel like there would be people in certain covens that would probably do that, where it's like, my boyfriend's a piece of shit, blah, 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 I'm gonna make his Xbox break or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't want to be behind that. Like, I don't want my name, it's not even that I'm afraid of repercussions, I just don't want my name signed to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's a waste of time, so.
Now, feeling that way,
Uh-huh.
and, you know, because we can also talk about what we talked about earlier about, like, the coven and the seance, and the witch who felt a little bit uncomfortable about doing a seance.
Right.
So, there was an instance where we were doing a seance at this time in the coven. We were doing a seance at Samhain, which we still do today. Every year, it's
And
kind
it
of
was
tradition.
before my time, so
And
I have no.
Yeah, and it was
dog
before
in
your
this
time.
race. Yeah.
But one of the witches in the coven, just at that point in their craft, I think that they're kind of different now. But at that point in their craft, they didn't particularly feel super comfortable with the idea of being part of a seance or doing a seance. But it wasn't that they didn't want the coven to do it. It was, hey, this is a boundary for me. I'm going to be upfront with you and tell you that, you know, while I would like to be a part of ritual, can I not be a part of that part?
Right.
And it wasn't the coven can't do this. It was I can't do this. So tying that into what we're talking about with, like, the hex work, for instance, and like, oh, my boyfriend or my ex is annoying me. Is this a situation where it is, I don't want to be in a coven that participates in petty jinxes, we'll call them, because that's really not even a curse, in my opinion. That's more of like a petty jinx. Like, may you hit every red light on your way to work. Like, is it, I don't want to be part of a coven that practices petty magic, or is it, I personally don't want to practice the petty magic? Or is it a mix of both for you?
I would say it's a mix of both, but I would say SCC never did petty magic.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So,
but I guess that would depend on what your perception of petty is.
Right. But I mean, for
that's,
me, because I'm a pretty low tolerance, like, I don't do drama. Like, if someone comes over, oh my god, guess what happens? You know what? Keep it to yourself. Don't bring it in my house. Don't come over my doorstep like that. I don't like it.
Right.
And, you know, I don't feel like Solar Court was ever petty in that way. Like, if individuals had their own petty shit going on in the background, that was them. But as far as, like, us all coming together, like, in the previous podcast, where I was, like, you know, I was seeing somebody and they were like, did you curse me? And it's like, no, you nerd, no.
Well, and a lot of times, like, when the coven's coming together, like, we have much bigger things that we're focusing on.
And I mean, that's the thing, too. We're all very mature people, and we don't waste time on the petty stuff. We have a lot of big grown-up problems in our lives, so...
Well, and we also have our own solitary practice as well. Like, you know, so-and-so might be going through maybe a big life transition between moving. So-and-so might be getting this promotion or losing their job. So-and-so might be going through a marriage or a divorce or possibly having children. Like, there's so many life transitions that we all go through, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that it was never... With all of our life transitions that we all cycle through and that we all go through, it was like the main picture and the focus when we were together was the actual coven work. I don't feel like it was ever really necessarily about this one person has this one particular issue. I think that if that was brought up and someone in a witch really needed help, I think that we would be there for them and hold space. But for the most part, it was very much like, let's honor these specific days or deities or traditions or customs or activities. Or let's try to enhance our psychic abilities. Or let's do a fun witchy DIY art craft and just hang out.
We weren't petty in that, like, let's spend all our time focusing on someone we don't like. And it's like, no, let's better ourselves. Because that's the best revenge. You know? So,
that's sad.
Back to that question, though. Yeah, I mean, anything short of, like, you know, sacrificing children or, like, fucking chickens, like, what you do in your own time is on you. That's cool. I don't care personally. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely believe in individualism, and if there was anything the Coven did do that I wouldn't have liked, I would have been like, hey, you know, not for me, but I'm all about freedom of choice, so you all do you. That's
Well, and
cool.
I would like to think, too, that at least within SC, like, there's the environment that if a witch doesn't feel comfortable, like, they're encouraged to voice that.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think, again, it's that having that foundation of us all being such good friends anyway, that we feel comfortable enough we can communicate with each other and say, hey, I'm not cool with X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm. So, about the code of conduct, I think that's tricky because I think it would depend on coven to coven.
Yeah.
So we can only really talk about SC, but, I mean, I don't know. How would you explain a code of conduct? I mean, is it I don't know. Like, it was never really...
I guess I would have just... We all kind of have our own personal ethics code, and we just kind of assume that your vibe attracts your tribe, and we all kind of felt the same, like, you know, there's
and I
moral
think that there's
ambiguity.
certain fundamental pillars of the coven,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, kind of fourth power here, and not to go into much detail, but, like, there are certain things that we honor. And so, like, at those specific times, that's what we're doing. That's why we're all together. And I think that there are certain beliefs that we all share, and anyone coming into the coven would have to subscribe to at least a little bit.
Right.
You know? We don't have
That's
to
the thing.
all be
We
the
would
same
know that from, like, before
the
day
beginning.
one.
Yeah.
You know?
So I don't feel like we had a book or a specific...
Because we all are just
checks
very
and-
like-minded people.
Yeah.
And we just kind of conduct ourselves in a similar way, so...
Yeah, and I don't think we particularly had... Or I don't know if we really need to have a particular checks and balances system when it comes to morality.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that within the SC, I think that we can all agree that morality is very individual and gray.
Yeah.
And we talk about everything.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we are not just doing like a sabbat or a ritual, but we are actually doing group spell work together, I mean, we pull cards on it. We talk extensively about it before we actually do it.
Right.
We talk about the various different ways we could do
That's
it.
the thing, too, that, like, we would just never just do anything hoity-toity. Like, we would really consult the fates, the gods, etc., etc. So, and I mean, I feel very blessed and fortunate. And I'm not really the type, being non-theistic, I don't really usually use the word blessed, but I do feel very blessed and fortunate to have been in a group like SC, where everything was just candid on the table, you know. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that we are blessed to have you for the time that we did.
Thank
You know, I think that everything in life comes in seasons and cycles and rhythms, and I think it's great that while that season, you know, might be over, that we can still continue our relationship, and that we can also revisit it whenever, you know? So, I am looking at the time here, and we're a little bit past that 30-minute mark, so we are going to wrap this up. We definitely still have some more questions, though. So we'll have to get into some other questions with C. And you can expect to see C in the next season of As the Cauldron Bubbles, which most likely will be launching around summer solstice of 2021. We're going to be wrapping up this season with our 13th episode, our grand finale, if you will, of the podcast for season 1. And I'll be taking a brief break and really working on some content for the podcast. And I'd love to have you back again, C.
I would love to be back.
Great. So, yeah, I guess we'll wrap this up
Yeah.
here. Blessed be.
Blessed be.